I can't believe that I'm already doing my fourth conversation with people in the second season of meandering conversations. Um, I've just finished speaking to Andy, who is tending to his teenage songs, the 13 songs that had just been born the week before we had our first conversation back in the fall. And he's been in the studio putting on drum tracks. And I know, he didn't say, but I know that he has a Patreon page where you get to be with him and these songs behind the scenes. So if that's of interest, go check that out. You can find it over in on andymort.com. I think you'll find a link to the Patreon. Um, we pick up on where me and Reddy left off on gratitude and connection. And I just finished reading Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer before this conversation. That also, the end of this book ties in beautifully to where me and Reddy left off with gratitude. So yeah, it's fun to, it is so much fun to just hop in and see where these conversations take us. We go deep into dreams as well. So I wonder what happens for you when you listen to that. If you have any sense of, curiosity about you and your dream life, or if you go, no, no, not for me. Either or is fine. But I hope you enjoyed. I know I did.
How are you?
I am good. I just finished reading a really, really, really lovely book that I've been speaking about with Matthew and Inma a lot because we're reading it for the book club in our creative community. But it's Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer.
Right, nice.
It is such a lovely book.
What's
In
what's the premise of that?
the subtitle is Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants.
Right.
Um, and she's a botanist and um, a member of the Potawatomi Nation. Um, but it just, it just opens up for a whole other way of being in and with the world.
hmm
Uh, and, she has a gorgeous language. She knows all of the science. She's a botanist. She knows the plants and the Latin names and all of that. But she just, it's gorgeous. So I think this is a book that I will be rereading quite often,
Right.
is my feeling. Yeah.
Mm. And recommending.
I'm recommending. So I've already written a review over on Goodreads saying this is a must read, and I will be sharing that on Instagram. And
hmm
that's how I work. I do share uh, the things that
Yeah.
I'm wowed by that I love. Yeah.
hmm Who would you
Uh,
who would you say it's a must read for?
well, the easy way would be everybody, um, but that probably doesn't really do it. I would say everybody who has some type of climate crisis anxiety could read this book and perhaps be a little bit more grounded in how to be with that, how to relate to that, and kind of get some uh relief, even though, I mean, she's not in any way saying, oh, this is how we do it. This is the easy way. And, if everybody just does this, then we're home free and everybody will do this because it makes sense. It's like she's not saying that at all.
hmm
Um, so it's not a hyper optimistic tale in any way, but it's like there's enough little small roots. It's like she's seeding, or pointing to seeds being there.
Right.
And if we can let them kind of take root inside of us, it will make
Mhm.
a difference. But yeah,
Mm.
it's a lovely book.
Yeah.
So I
That
recommend
sounds
you to
intriguing.
read it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's I'm kind of looking out for things that it sounds like it sort of ticks the box of like, within the context of like that climate crisis anxiety and anxieties around other things and this sort of collective anxiety that can paralyze us, I suppose, like things that actually acknowledge reality but provide hope and possibility
Yeah,
and kind of return you to a place of like, okay, this is how I'm
yeah,
gonna move forward
yeah,
from a kind of place of
yeah.
empowerment, I suppose. Yeah,
And
that
and
sounds like
just
that.
thinking about it, it's like, well, this is definitely kind of a gentle rebel way of of being. Um, what she proposes, it is like, um, because that in and of itself is kind of a tankespjärn, gentle. You think it's so soft and rebel. You think, "Well,
Hmm.
how do they go together?" But it's like, yeah, that's kind of the energy of the book. It's like
Yeah.
it is a very lovingly written, uh, poignant story that's evolving, and she's pointing to, the clashes that exist, or
Hmm.
the what might be if we just keep at it the way we are. So it's like it really is, one of those both and,
Hmm.
uh, books. So
That's
I've
cool.
finished reading it this morning, and just, oh, um, and I love that. I love when I'm touched, and it links to, I was recording with Reddy, and somehow I lost an hour. And I don't know how that, our last conversation was like 3 hours, 10 minutes, and I was
No.
thinking we should not do that again. So when it was like time to stop, I hadn't checked the clock. And then we rounded off in a way that just beautifully melts into the last chapters of this book about
Right.
gratitude really being about connection. That that is what gratitude is. It's like being aware of the connection that is. And she just brings that up. So he's like, oh man, this. But I finished recording. I went to stop my QuickTime Play recording, and it says 3.5 hours. And I'm going, what the fuck? How did that? It's like, maybe I thought we'd been going 2.5 hours. We'd been
Yeah.
going for 3.5. It's like, ow.
Did you take a toilet break in that time?
No, no. I really
Well,
needed to go when we were finished. But it was like, just, yeah, I don't know. So it's like,
it's amazing.
somehow it just, well, it just flows. I guess that's what it's all
That's it.
about. But it's interesting because what we came to at the end was this, Reddy had the insight about gratitude being unawareness of connection, that is what that is. And it just, now finishing this book is just, that's what she's pointing to. She speaks about gratitude and connection or relation. And I'm going, if we hadn't gone for that 3.5 hour, I wouldn't have had
You
that
wouldn't have reached it.
segue.
No.
No, we
Hmm.
wouldn't have reached it. So, I don't know. Everything happens for a reason, or I can make believe as if everything happens for a reason. I can assign a meaning to,
Hmm.
um, everything. So I choose to do that.
Yeah, I
But
suppose if it hadn't happened, you wouldn't know that it didn't happen.
that's true. That's true. And I guess that's kind of the aspect of negative and positive feedback, that you can't really know. things that aren't happening, you don't know.
Yeah.
Like, no, precisely. How do
Kind
you
of
measure
weird.
that? Well, you don't.
Yeah.
You know, how do you know if someone is, will be killing themselves if they don't come to that point where they are trying to kill themselves? It's like you
Mm.
don't know. But, it sure is worth it.
Yeah.
Like we can't stop crime from happening. We can only it's like uh w- somehow it's like it's weird.
It is weird, isn't it? Yeah. Because it's how, I guess, retroactively you can create the narrative backwards to say this caused this inevitability. Like, this was always inevitable because this happened, but it was only inevitable because that's what ended up happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about in that respect, like time travel.
Yeah. Weird. But besides that, I am super curious to hear about your kids.
Yeah, they're
How
growing
are
up
the
fast.
songs doing?
They're great. Yeah, bringing me a lot of joy at the moment. So yeah, last week as we were recording this, I was in the studio laying down all the final drum parts. So yeah, got the 13 songs done. Which has been just a lovely process. Just getting back behind the drum kit to start with has been nice.
Are you like rusty? Or
I
it's
mean, I'm not
there?
like, it's there. I'm not I'm not. I'm certainly sort
Okay.
of rusty compared to what I used to be able to
Mm,
do. But kind of worked within those limitations, and it was interesting. Like, as the session wore on,
mm.
I became more and more comfortable and loose, and everything was, yeah. So we ended up actually going back to the first 2 tracks that we recorded and re-recording them,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the difference was quite
You
yeah.
could see here the difference. You could
You
hear
really
the
could.
difference.
It was just like, there's a freedom. Like, it might not be that obvious, but there's a definite change of the the kind of energy and the freedom that I was playing with. So that was great. And the whole process was lovely in terms of the preparation as well. Just kind of channeling them all towards that point. It's like, okay, I'm in the studio next week. Therefore, I've got to, work on the songs and get them, to where I want them to be in order to lay that platform for essentially the finalized versions. So that was quite fun and really insightful in terms of the. I think I kind of write at a certain tempo and assume that the song has to be at the tempo that I write in. And it's similar with kind of the keys that I write in as well. Like, a lot of the same things crop up. So just in the preparation for the session, I was like, okay, I'm going to fiddle about with tempos for a couple of the tracks, and I added on. I think one of the songs I added about 50 beats per minute. So,
Wow,
like,
that's quite a
radically changed the, and it was because it was a track that I was like I'm enjoying this. There's something about it that keeps me coming back to it, but it's missing something, and I'm not sure what that is. So then it suddenly just occurred to me, okay, like, just throw on 50 BPM, and it was like, oh, the energy has just completely
mm,
shifted. The song has almost stepped into like a new set of clothes, and it's like, yeah, and it's in the kind of analogy of thinking of them as kids. It's that moment where, like, maybe it chose its own outfit. It was like, no, I want to wear this.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't want Dad to keep telling me what to wear.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
So through that, they've all now really got their own identities. So, like, yeah, as the kid into the toddler into the, they're probably teenagers at the moment. I
Yeah,
don't know.
it feels like teenagers, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Got their own. The identity is very much being established. Yeah.
so Does that mean that you have drums and, I don't know, keyboard and guitar and bass and all of that? Or do you just have the drums and now need to put on the other pieces of
Well,
clothing or whatever
yeah.
you should
So what I
call it?
did was the guide tracks are. I've kind of built up guide tracks using various things. So I've put down some keys and guitars and stuff. But just as a template, essentially. So yeah, the drums are the only thing that are right. That's the drum part, and so the rest of it will now follow. And I'm sure there'll be other radical changes ahead because thinking back to like my process in previous albums and stuff, things tend to change even with that foundation. Um, there'll be a lot of creative maneuverings, I think.
Will there be creative maneuverings that might cause you to redo a drum track? Or no, that's the skeleton and we'll just be basing everything on top of that?
Yeah, I would think like who's to
Who
say?
knows? Yeah.
But yeah,
Mhm.
like normally it's the drum track is that skeleton, is that
Mm.
thing that right, okay. So it might be that I remove a drum track and turn it into a drum machine and change things like that. If it wants to go kind of electronic, but yeah, generally it will or else slice up a beat. So something that I might have, recorded as a full part, I'll be like, okay, no, I'm gonna just
This.
slice it
Mhm.
up and recreate it, and
Mhm.
yeah, and that's the part I find so fun is the production and the I wonder what happens if I do this, and because I'm now going to release, so I'm going to be looking at one track at a time, um, and sort of really focusing on one song, getting that out, so I can like I think I've got the big picture of the album, and now I can kind of go into the particulars of each song and see what they want to become. So spend some time there.
So do you like have a friend who has a studio or is like, no, it's a rent a studio by the hour or how?
Yeah,
How?
it's someone I've a guy called Matt who I'd not worked with before, but yeah, he runs a little studio not far from well in Birmingham. So yeah, and I'd kind of got in touch because I'd thought about working with him perhaps, and so got in touch with him just to sort of kind of see what the possibilities were. So then so he was, I guess, engineering the session, and so we did 3.5 days. So he ran the session essentially, and I recorded the parts, and then he sort of edited stuff as well. So yeah, really really great working with him. Such a it's it's an interesting. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but like thinking about I've been thinking a lot about like creative feedback and getting that sense of. I think did we talk about this last time? And having somebody who, when you kind of ask for feedback or you ask like, "What do you think of this?" or whatever, somebody who knows what it is that you are trying to do and knows your voice, so they're not coming at it from the perspective of like, "Well, I would do it like this. I would change that," but they would say, to be more of what you are, let's do this. Like, and Matt's one of those people who he can hear like almost the vision in your head. And it's like an oral vision, whatever that would be, and almost can hear it more than maybe you would be able to,
Yeah.
and you'd
Yeah.
be able to articulate. And so he was kind of able to allow that to flow and to do so in a really encouraging way as well. Because there's always those moments of doubt of like, maybe I need to make it sound more like something else, or, and that's, another side of the feedback that you might get from people if they're comparing what you're doing to what is already out there. They say, well, if you want to be more like this thing that's popular or this thing that's successful, then you need to do this. Forgetting that often the thing that's successful and popular has gone through that process of finding its own voice and actually going against what was maybe popular and successful before. And yeah, so like he's definitely one of those people that brought that out. There's been a few figures through, like when I think about my relationship with music and creativity, a few people who it's almost like a challenging feedback of when you don't meet, it's kind of not meeting the standards that you set for yourself or that somebody else knows you're capable of. And so
And
they might be
helping
sort of,
you.
like, I'm really disappointed that you haven't, you've kind of bottled it. Like the rebellion is not there. That rebellious part is,
Mm.
the
It's a
thing that
little bit
gives
like,
you.
I mean, it sounds as if he's a really great coach. It's just that what he's coaching
Yeah,
you in
absolutely.
is getting these songs to really be what these songs
Exactly.
can
Yeah.
be, that are spawned by you, uh, you know.
Hmm.
And it reminds me of my friend Bob, who is an artist and an interior designer, I
Hmm.
guess. Um, she has helped me or us here to find ways in the hallway and up in the kids' room and in the kitchen that are us.
Hmm.
And so I found her through an article in the local newspaper, like 2006, maybe a long time ago. And it was about a woman not that far from here who wanted to redo her home. And Balbo was the one that she chose to help her do it. And Balbo's philosophy is to really look at what is there and ask then the lady, which of these items in here do you like? Which of these colors do you like? What's here for you? And what is it that you want to change? So the change that she helps is just that. It is, how do I want my home to be? I'm just not capable by myself to know it because I'm not trained.
Hmm.
So her redoing this lady's home was not one of those radical makeovers that you see where you have a home that's just riff and raff and all of a sudden it turns into a baroque home or, steel and glass, because that's what, and then you can kind of see that that person will not be
Yeah.
at home in this at all. It's like, yeah, it looks kind of funky, but to live in, no. And Baba does the opposite. It's like,
Hmm.
how can I get more of you to be visible in your home? So I was like, this lady. So I Googled her, I found her, and I
Wow.
said, hey, could you? And we just turned into great friends.
That's really
Um,
cool. That's so.
yeah.
It's so. And there's something really powerful about being allowed to and encouraged to like bring your own sense of like taste and preference and all of that stuff to a situation like that. Like, so often there might be that sense of like, I don't know what I'm doing. You need to tell me what to do. You need to show me what is fashionable, or like
Yeah.
you need to just change things so that it's better or whatever. And actually, yeah, and it is that sort of coaching element to it where it's like, no, you know what you want. We're just going to find that thing, you know, like we're going to allow that to come through the surface. And that's a really powerful and empowering thing to have happen with somebody. And it's the same with the music stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to be in a process like that is just a thrill. In the kitchen that we then remade in 2010 or 11 or something. We had, because it was the worst kitchen and it was kind of weird, and me and my then husband, we were kind of stuck in what it was. so that we knew we didn't
Yeah.
want that, but we couldn't really see that you could take away a little wall there, and and Baba was just kind of humoring us. She was drawing these sketches, and then all of a sudden we realized, huh, what if we don't have that thing there? We flip it around so it's over there instead. And you could see her just kind of, finally, that
Mm.
block in you guys is gone. And she had probably been nudging us towards it without actually saying, you need to take that and put it over there.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, it removed a blockage in us. Just, well, and then so I love my kitchen. I
That's really cool.
absolutely love my kitchen, and it's made of of sturdy wood, and it's just a gorgeous kitchen. So if I ever sell, I'll have them sign in blood that they are not allowed to rip out the kitchen ever. It's like, because that's a kitchen that can easily stand there for hundreds of years.
Mhm.
It is that the quality is that. Sure, you'll have to probably replace the refrigerator and the stove and stuff, but the cupboards and the drawers and stuff are just
So it's amazing how you find your way to a timelessness as well when you really take your time to go through a process like that. As thinking, yeah, in terms of like interior design that represents not necessarily how the surface of things, like how you want everything to look or whatever. Although that is important, like it's something deeper than that.
Mm.
Um, and it's the same with music. I think where if you're driven by the desire to just make something that sounds like everything else sounds today, or to like use methods that everybody is using or whatever, then that's going to be dated. That's going to be dated very, very quickly.
Mhm.
But if you take the time to find that deeper level, to find that other thing, then even if you are using methods that are popular today, there's going to be a timeless quality in it that means, like, there's songs. I was thinking, oh, what was it the other day? I was listening to something and I was like, it's a song from like the 70s. I was thinking this could have been recorded like this year and it would still sound the same. Can't remember what it was, but there are a few things that like that, yeah. Oh, what was it? I don't know. It might come to me, but
It might come to you.
yeah, it's that timelessness where there isn't a need to rip that kitchen out because actually,
No,
yeah, the only need would be I want people to see that I'm, up with the latest fashion or
and I'm definitely not. uh, but that reminds me, I will see if I can find. Let's see. There was. mm, Let's see. In Burning Sweetgrass, there's a chapter called Shkitagen, People of the Seventh Fire. Shkitagen is the Potawatomi way of saying chaga, which is this
Mhm.
mushroom growing on birch, growing on birch. Um, they speak about the sacred fire, and he says there's a fire you must tend to every day. Or rather, there's fire you must tend to every day. The hardest one to take care of is the one right here, he says, tapping his finger against his chest. Your own fire, your spirit. We all carry a piece of that sacred fire within us. We have to honor it and care for it. You are the firekeeper. And I'm thinking the timelessness of things is when that's where it comes from. That's what is at the root, at the heart of, at the core of a kitchen or a song or a book or a painting or I don't know what.
Yeah.
accompany, right? It's like when it is allowed to come from that place, to take root in that place, rather than, as you say, oh, this is popular right now. Everybody needs to have this type of drum sound right now. It's like, no, because it's not rooted
Hmm.
uh, in me. It's like,
Yeah. Totally. It's like the part of you that is there, whether you pick yourself up out as a 3-year-old, as a 23-year-old, as a 63-year-old, or on your deathbed or whatever. It's that fire, that essence
yeah,
of spirit, of yeah, what's there always.
mm, yeah.
So what have you been up to?
Reading. Um, what else have I been up to? I've been having some. I've been having some conversations that both with me and with Dominic, my therapist, and with uh, in the creative community, and you know, where I think that maybe that's what's going on. Actually, is this kind of figuring out what aspects of me, of how I am in the world, what I'm showing to the world, what I'm doing with my being, which ones of those are really rooted in me, in that very deep part of me, and which ones kind of, the roots go down, but not as deep. They don't go all the way down into that aspect. And it's like, does that mean that I let them go? Or, what's there? So I'm currently coming to a place in therapy where I feel as if I'm invited to look at aspects of me and let them go. And there's a scary part to that that hasn't really been that visible before, because when I was in therapy, my first round 15 years ago, I was wanting to shed layers of aspects of me that I knew did not serve me. I didn't,
Hmm.
they didn't, they weren't serving me. They were harming me in various ways and harming others around me. So it's like those were easy to shed. And it's
Yeah.
like, I want to do this work. I want to get rid of those. Now I'm at a place where I kind of like some of these layers. It's like I've gotten used to these layers. They feel like they are serving me, but are they really it's like, so there's and what's underneath that then?
Hmm.
If I let this go, who am I? How am I? What am I? And just avoid an unknown that's opening up in a different way than when it was. I want to be rid of this because I can see on the other side will be something much nicer, much friendlier towards myself, etc. Right now, it's
Yeah.
like, ooh. So I'm kind of on shaky ground. Um,
So what's telling you that there are things that you need to maybe get rid of?
I woke up Monday morning with a dream, having had a dream that had me waking up with a racing heart,
Right.
that sense of shit. And I woke up thinking, shit, I need to change this dream. I need to go back to sleep and change this dream. I need to work out another ending towards it because this is just horrible. Because I was waking up knowing that I had died in the dream. I'd been chased by dark ninja type warriors with invisible knives that they were stabbing me with, even though you could see the knives, and I was dying and I was chased and I was trying to get out. And, it's like, and I woke up. When I woke up, it was like, I'm not going to write this dream down. I don't want to remember this dream.
Hmm.
Um, so I brought that to therapy. And that's kind of what we came to, me and Dominic. This is things in me that I, I'm killing off layers of myself. And it is happening. It is like that is what is happening. So there's some sense of there's multiple areas where I'm being told or shown that this is what's happening. That dream was one of them.
Hmm.
Um, so it's like, okay, what happens if I do let them go?
Hmm.
And I mean, this has been going on. I mean, part of that is the reason why I'm going to therapy. It's like because there are patterns, habits, routines, beliefs that I know aren't serving me, but they are deeper in me than the ones that I got rid of 15 years
Yeah.
ago, in a sense.
So it's that difference between the things at the outset, that 15 years ago, they're the kind of, it's all quite obvious stuff, isn't it? That you just know, I can identify and I can name these things that are not
Yeah,
serving me. And so
yeah,
therefore I have something tangible to get rid of.
yeah, yeah.
But then you sort of move down to the next level and it's like, maybe it's more of a sense or a feeling. It's a general, I know there are things, but I can't necessarily access them with language. Or
No,
yeah.
with language, with ration, they're not tangible. They're
Hmm.
not easily defined or pointed to or described. It's like, but there's something there.
Yeah.
Um, so, and it's like it goes along with what I've been doing for the past couple of years, but especially the past 3, 4 months of this, of like really starting to listen more to intuition, really finding an openness to that so that I don't automatically fall into rational intellect saying this is what to do, because rational intellect can tell me that, you live a great life just now. Keep at it the way it is. Don't rock the boat.
Mm.
It's like, but there's something telling me rock the boat. It's like,
Interesting. Yeah.
well, what then? What will happen then? It's like, I don't know. No, that's kind of the point. You don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting how you, because does the intellectual sort of rational part like keep kicking in, searching for the answers to the what is it that I need to get rid of and how do I need to get rid of, and you kind of come back to that searching for the tangible thing. And
Yeah.
so, well, what if there is no specific tangible answer to that? It's not like I need to stop doing something particular because it's leading to this particular outcome. It's like, actually, maybe it's more fluid than that. It's more, yeah, there's, I don't know, more difficult to define, or it's happening on a different plane, a different level. Right? It's really interesting that dreams. Do you get have you sort of had an active dream life? Is it something that you do a lot?
Well, yeah, I think I have like all my life, I can look back and I can remember having dreamed and waking up and being in relation with the dream, etc. So I can remember that from when I was really tiny and I watched some horror movie that I was really not supposed to watch and
Mhm.
dreaming and waking up screaming, I was buried alive and, just horrible stuff. So, and I remember that still. I remember lying in bed, waking up, being so terrified by this dream. So, yes, I know that I dream. Everybody dreams. I know that I dream. But it's just in the past. It is since I started therapy that I've started to record not all dreams, but some dreams and jot them down and start to have um do dream work, I guess.
Mhm.
Work with it in essence. And there's an audiobook by Clarissa Pinkola Estes that's called A Beginner's Guide to Dream Interpretation. That's just an hour and a half, an hour, 40 minutes or something that I've listened to over and over again. Um, because it's like I'm I'm coming into relationship with my dream life differently now that I'm actually actively working more with it. And
Mm.
Dominic is good at dream work too. He's done it for himself for many, many years and
Yeah.
he's good at that stuff. So it's been really interesting and again, kind of like new ground. I'm stepping onto new ground here, speaking about dreams the way I speak about them, retelling them in different, you know, I or Helena, first person, second person, third, it's like,
Mhm.
or Dominic has asked me to act a dream, to you know go. I was lying in bed as I was dreaming, and he was asking me to like do the dream without words.
Mhm.
And he was like, hmm. And I was in a bed and I was falling out of the bed and I was crawling and it's like and so it's as if I'm playing with different ways of I don't want to say get the dream, but to feel the message of the dream, of like amplifying the message of the dream in such a way that it kind of clicks in place somehow, where I think also rational part of me gets enough of a getting it that it's satisfied. And then there's other aspects of me that also get, this is that thing, So it's like, yeah, it's a little bit like cooking a meal that has all of the ingredients to make it nourishing for all aspects of, there is protein, there is vitamin, there is carbs, and there is fat. So there's enough calories and there is enough trace elements. And it's like, yeah.
Mm. Mm.
So it's like I'm satiated in a way from because it used to be I could wake up from dreams and just be frustrated. Or like this one, just be terrified. It's like, and staying there, it's like, I'm only, that's just the first step. I can
Yeah.
step deeper into the dream and feel other things, experience other things, see other things.
Mm.
Um,
Did you go back into that dream? You talked about like dreaming something else.
I didn't because I had a hard time sleeping. So no, I didn't. Or rather, I wasn't able to. Because sometimes I have dreams where I'm not able to. I try my darndest to, I step into it again and I can do that sometimes. And I like have a little arm, a little tentacle out into me being awake saying, I need to change this dream.
Yeah.
So I know I've been able to do that a couple of times, but this one, forget about it.
Mm.
Not possible. Um,
It's
because
really
like,
interesting.
no.
Yeah, I kind of see like, and what you're describing is kind of similar to it's like opening a conversation or seeing it as a conversation with yourself. That it's like, okay, let's dig into what is being said in this conversation. Like, because when you have characters, it's quite easy to sort of project them as the character, especially if they're people you know. Like if you dream about there's figures that you have encountered in waking life. It's easy to think that that's that person as opposed to a part of me that I am projecting onto that person.
Mm.
And I guess we've probably all had that feeling of like resenting somebody the next day because we've dreamt about them and they did something really
Yep.
dickish.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, it's kind of not even necessarily your interpretation of that person. It's just the figure that you've used to project some part of your psyche onto them. I find it, it's just endlessly fast. Dreams really fascinate me
So
so
do
much.
you
Yeah.
work with dreams?
I've never done any sort of real work with them, but I dream very vivid, like quite, um, yeah, bizarre dreams. I most of the time really enjoy just what my what my dreams come out with. Sometimes it's terrifying. Like last week, I had one sort of that woke me up because it was like a horror dream,
Mm.
and then I went back to sleep and went straight back into the dream. So it happened and I had no control over the situation. But yeah, there's certain themes. I think I often find myself in a kind of nondescript hotel with loads and loads and loads and loads of rooms, being pursued by like a gunman or it's usually people with knives, probably similar to your thing. And the, the like the hotel, such a sprawling place with so many places to hide. And yet I can never get away
Get
from
away. Yeah.
wherever I go, I can never find a good enough hiding place. Which is, very, like, do some work with that. That's probably quite obvious interpretations of that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of a
and
theme.
that's the thing. I have to say, like the dream that I had Monday night or Sunday night, I it is, Dominic is a coach for me in that way, in the same way that Matt coached your songs to be more you, and like Pablo could help us get the kitchen to be more us. It's like, because surface level, this dream, I just I am just stuck in the fear of it. I am just stuck in the sense of I am being killed and this is bad. Because we're not supposed to be killed by ninja clad dark men wearing invisible knives. That's not a good way to go.
Mm,
So having someone help me unravel, unpick, just kind of lay it out there in different ways. It turns into messages that I had no clue were in
mm,
the dream. However obvious I might have thought it was, like something completely different shows.
yeah.
Um, so it's been fun to do that, because my recurring dream, I've spoken about this before, but my recurring dream has been never getting there, never getting the bus, the train, the plane. I walk and walk and walk and walk, or I drive and the car breaks
Interesting.
down, and I'm just, I can walk on a endless parking lot that just never ends, so I don't get to the bus station. even though I'm walking for hours and the parking lot is only like a kilometer long, I still don't get there. So like
Hmm.
this never getting there thing, that one has been happening. Well, for I've had that dream that I know of at least for 20 years,
Right.
different forms, but that same thread. And me and Dominic, we really got into one of those dreams. And all of a sudden, ah, that was the message that the dream maker has been trying to get me to understand for the past 20 years. Now, okay. So it's like I've I really recommend, jotting them down.
Mm.
Uh Seeing what's there. Is there anything in the dream? Did I have an encounter with a bus the other day? What happened on the bus the other day? Or, is there anything of significance to me? Is there anything in my life, in my waking life, that is similar to this? Or do I need something similar to this in my wake? It's like
Yeah.
you can kind of ask
It's
a
the
lot of
questions that yeah,
questions.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of, yeah, like stepping beyond the idea that there is one interpretation, like this means one thing, and just use it to explore all manner of different
Yeah.
questions that you can sort of like ask yourself and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's fascinating. Yeah.
And that's, I think, what Clarissa Pinkola Estes really points to in this beginner's guide to dream interpretation. That sure, you can take your dreams to someone who's a skilled dream interpreter, but what's really important is, what do you make of it?
Hmm.
What of
Yeah.
this dream is significant for you? Is there a basket there? Is there a rat in it? Is there a color, a sensation, and really pulling it, like making bridges from the dream life into the waking life and seeing, do I need more of this rat or do I need less of this rat? What does it signify? What's a possible um, reason for this rat to occur here? What
Mm.
can it do? And what happens if I take the perspective of the rat in the dream? If I look at what's going on in the dream from the rat or the bowl or the bus, or,
Yeah.
it's like, so really just doing that. And I like that. I like that she's so clear in pointing out that there's no one.
Hmm.
This is the true interpretation of this dream. No,
Because I suppose that's what a dream interpreter would do as well, is ask questions that sort of get you thinking about the significance of things and whether something means anything or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I the rat?
Yeah,
Yeah.
precisely. What happens if I'm the rat?
Yeah.
Yeah, or the bowl, or the bus.
Mm.
What then?
Reminds me of
Oh,
very one of the most bizarre dreams that I ever had was, I can't remember the context around it, but I basically had in my forearm, had like a panel. It was a bit like a trap door that I suddenly discovered, and then opened it up and found a load of little puppies hatching. And I'd been sort of growing these puppies in my arm. And then they came, and I can't really remember what happened after that, but it was one of those where you're like, where has that come from? Like, like, you know, there was no obvious explanation, but it's one that because I enjoy the bizarre things that come up.
yeah.
Yeah. And I used to, when I was a child, used to dream, my dreams were more sound than like visual things. Like, and
Mm.
and reflecting back, I think it might have been linked I used to get a lot of ear infections when I was a kid as well. So I had a very noisy, like it felt pressurized, I think, in my head. And so I'd have this recurring nightmare of like this expanding, like what I could only describe visually as like an expanding, like orb or ball type thing that was like it would expand so much, and then there'd be like a pin that would just pop
pop.
it, and it would just like explode. And I'd try and get out of the dream before the explosion happened, because it was like this really frightening thing. But it was more of a, it was a sound dream. So like as far as like a sensory experience of dreaming goes, it's quite interesting to think of it as more than just a visual thing, more than just the things that you see. It's really interesting. If you ever smell in dreams, but
And it's like there's usually not a lot of sound in dreams that I have. There's a lot of interaction and stuff, but it's usually not. I usually don't hear it unless there is a sound from outside. Because I mean, how many times have I woken up because in the dream, all of a sudden the fire alarm starts to go beep. I don't have a battery. Beep. I don't have a battery. Beep. You need to change the battery. Beep. And it's like,
and you're in
that
your dream trying
takes
to
it
turn it off, like there's something
precisely. And then you kind of go, aha, it's it's that thing. I need to go and check what's going on with a fire detector. But it's interesting to hear that, especially if you did have a lot of ear infections. It's like,
I wonder if it's
how
linked
was
to...
this dream a way for your dream body to deal with your ear infections?
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, the scariest version of the outside, or I suppose it's still inside world, but like external factors creeping into your dream. I don't know if you ever have it, if you need the toilet, and you in a dream you go around going to the toilet. I don't know, I'm not sure I've spoken to anyone else who gets this, but and that's nothing you can do will obviously satiate the fact that you need to go to the toilet, fortunately. But and then you wake up and it's like, right, yes, okay, I was telling myself to wake up, I think. I wonder, you probably get that with like hunger. If you're hungry and you go around eating in your dream, it's like, I'm still hungry.
Yeah.
It's like a very physical,
Yeah.
obvious interpretation.
Yeah. It's fun that we have. Like that there's so many aspects to reality. There's kind of there's the tangible reality, and then there's the non-tangible reality. And that's not less real. It's just
No.
less tangible. It's like, it's still there.
And in many ways, it's like, I guess in like psychoanalysis, talk about like the unconscious being more real than waking reality. It's like that stuff that we're trying to communicate or is going on in a dream, for example, or in the in-betweens, the slips of the tongue, and the things that just spill out that we aren't in control of. That's the more real side of reality.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah. Dreams.
Like, dreams. Yeah. Maybe that's a good place to end it so that we don't go for 3 hours.
I'm sure you're still exhausted from yesterday. Yeah.
And it's like just the weirdest. Talk about this feeling of tangible, non-tangible. It's like I lost an hour. It's like, where did it go?
It's the power of flow, isn't it? Where you just...
Yes.
Time means nothing during that window.
And this, the aspect of time as being this linear thing. What if it isn't a linear thing? What if it all just is? And we have just, tried to make tangible in a way that intellect and ration can understand. But really, there's a lot more going on, because all of a sudden, that linear 3.5 hour doesn't at all translate into what I've been experiencing. It's like,
Totally.
wow.
yeah, it's really like the fluidity of all that and connection. Coming back to that word connection, I often think, you know, those people that you like are very close to. You might go ages and ages without seeing or speaking to them, and then you engage with them again, and it's as if no time has passed, and like that connection, the linearity of time between then and now just doesn't exist. It's like
No.
you just pick up
Yeah.
where you kind of left off. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit like you slicing and dicing drum and parts. It's like, maybe if there's a really big peak and then, and then there's a really big peak. It's like, and that's those things. Yeah, you can just take away that thing in between because
Hmm.
it's just a peak. And then there's the other peak because
Yeah.
we are. Uh, yeah, I think time is much more relative than we make it out to be.
I would say so. Mm.
Well,
Cool.
thank you. What will you be doing
Thank you.
today?
Today I am developing a short like coaching program type thing.
Mm.
Yeah, around a kind of similar, touching on sort of what you're talking about. So I'm looking at the difference between like courage, bravery, and strength, or sort of finding some concepts beneath those words, like not defining the words like etymologically, but yeah, I've been thinking a lot about there's kind of three parts of this process of courage being becoming aware that something either feels wrong or feels like I need this to change. And so it's like I'm using this image of a wall as the kind of foundation for this little program. And so courage is allowing yourself to turn and acknowledge the fact there is a wall. So I suppose like similar to what you were saying about this, knowing, becoming aware, okay, something isn't how it needs to be or how it could be or whatever. So whether it's like, yeah, like I use a trivial example of when you're in the car and there's a strange noise, courage is saying, yeah, that isn't right. That shouldn't be making that sound. And then bravery is the action that then sort of addresses that point that you've come to acknowledge in that courageous act. And everything is despite fear, not in the absence of fear. So often we put off looking at the wall because we're afraid of either what it will entail in terms of what we'll need to do as a result, or we're afraid of what it might tell us, and all of that sort of stuff. And then, yeah, bravery is kind of looking at the wall and seeing the bricks in the wall and knowing, okay, these are the things that I could do that will start to bring the wall down. And then once the wall comes down, you've got this sort of, I don't know, this scene the other side of it where you've got all of your, or behind you, like just all around, you've got the bricks of the walls from throughout our lives that make these memorial strongholds that sort of tell the story of times we've overcome walls, because we've been doing it. We've been smashing down walls all our lives, like, little things like kind of first day at school, little
Mm.
other
Mm.
just things that, and it's all very, very personal stuff, things that were a massive deal for you that somehow you managed to navigate through. And then those strongholds, those memories hold the story of your strength, of what it took and what you've been capable of, despite fear, and that is this sort of the residual strength of facing the things that you fear and know that you need to kind of look at, and then acting on those. So yeah, I'm sort of developing that at the moment.
Cool. Cool. That sounds fun. And it makes me wonder how courage and bravery, I think, both translate into the same word mood in Swedish. So I have to go
Mm,
look that up because that's one of the things that happens in like emotion and feeling are both translated as känsla.
right.
It's like I'm losing out on the subtleness of that. So maybe there is maybe courage and bravery. Maybe there were two Swedish words. I'm gonna have to go
It's really
duck
is.
duck go that to see.
Yeah. Like one of the things I'm sort of encouraging in the program is come up with your own words for them, because I think we can sometimes get hung up on, well, that word means this, and it's like, yeah, like I think you can feel when I'm kind of describing those concepts, it's like, you know what that is, you know that,
Mm,
and you know the kind of
mm.
general difference between those two things. So yeah, I came up with, replace the word courage with flamunky, bravery with crumple fudge, and then that kind of residual strength. What have I called it? Like spickle, I think. But yeah, interestingly, thinking about sort of translations.
Mm,
So my friend Tula, who's
mm,
Finnish, was
mm,
talking about this word sisu. I think that's how you
mhm.
pronounce it,
Yeah,
which is
Finnish sisu,
yeah,
well
and that's
known.
the strength. It's a strength that isn't translated
Mm,
as strength. And I was kind of like, is it? It's that sort of underdog strength that maybe comes from a nation mind that, because I was thinking it's probably similar. There's a similar sort of strength that comes in countries like Wales and Scotland,
yeah,
for example,
yeah.
around the UK, that England probably isn't able to, as the sort of more, I guess, the power, the oppressor, so to speak, that kind of the force that exerts strength through might and through
Mm,
like size, and is able to
yeah.
get its way by just imposing itself on
Brute
people.
force, yeah.
It's a
Sisu
totally
is more
different sort
like
of
a
strength.
resilient. There's kind of it's a little bit silent, but there's also a slyness in it, uh,
Hmm.
somehow. There's like
It's a retaining the integrity of identity
mhm,
despite that being, you know,
yeah, yeah,
trying to
pummeled.
be removed. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So it's fascinating.
yeah. Finland has been, I mean, squashed between Russia and Sweden
Hmm.
for centuries.
Yeah.
And
Two
still they
big
have
brutish
retained.
brothers.
Yeah, yeah, precisely. And still they have retained a very, like you say, that that national um, trait of
Yeah.
Sisu. Uh,
And yeah, because I was thinking as well about it as in the context of like bullying, and how um, the bullied, I guess you can go down the line of then paying that forward. If you've been bullied, then you
mm,
find somebody to bully, or you find someone smaller than you who you then take it out on. Or I wonder if the sisu is actually you become more of yourself.
mm,
You find you become more beautiful than the bully. You find that strength of, actually, no, this is who I am, and you can do whatever you want, but you can't take away the essence of me. Um, and I think that's a really powerful thing to think about as well. Is like how, because remember thinking it at school, when you start secondary school, so like age 12, 11, 12, and you're the youngest in this massive, like overwhelmingly big environment. What do you do when you become the next year group up? Do you essentially do what the year group above you did to you when you started,
yeah,
maybe?
or something else.
Or do you
Mm,
say, I know how it felt to be sort of picked on, or I know how it felt to have that, and I don't want that to be anybody else's experience. So I'm going to do what I can to sort
mm,
of make that not happen for people,
mm.
as opposed to that happened to me, therefore I'm going to make sure it happens to other
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
take
And
out my
again, it
pain.
comes down to personal choice there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, if it comes down to personal choice and everybody has it, but we are not always aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if it is, if I haven't become aware of it, it might be that it's easiest to just perpetuate, this is what was done to me, I will do this too. If you don't shine a light on it, seeing, hey, this is what happened to me. I really didn't like that. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to do that to anybody. Then
Yeah.
a fork in the road. There's
Mm-hmm.
another way possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that speaks to the almost an experience of the power of forgiveness as a thing to free yourself from the resentment that you might harbor about what was done to you in that
Mm.
respect, and how that actually just eats you up. Whereas forgiveness in that sense is turning something shit into something that actually,
Yeah. Turning it
mm,
into a fertilizer.
yeah,
Again,
yes,
using
lovely,
it.
lovely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Using the shit
Mm-hmm.
as fertilizer.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, to see what good can come of this. Um,
Yeah, nice.
Not always as easy to do as to say,
Oh,
but
it's theoretically very easy, but yes, in
feel
practice,
yeah,
it's yeah.
yeah, yeah, but worth it. That's
Mm-hmm.
what shit is there for. Shit
Mm-hmm.
is a part of the cycle
Yeah.
of life, right? It is there to be manure, to be fertilizer. That is what it turns into. That is how the cycle of life continues.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if we let it become that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, that sounds like a great little program.
Mm. Yeah, it's fun developing it. Yeah. What are you up to?
I have a meeting with a client in a few hours, and that's what's on the agenda as such. And then, who knows? I
Cool.
feel a little bit inspired to be creative, so I just might write.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah, it does sound good because I haven't been writing much. I haven't been in that place where I can
Mm.
write. And it feels like, oh, something is like, come on now, come on,
Ah, good.
sit down, do it. It wants to come. So
Oh,
sit down and let it come.
love
So
that
I think
feeling.
that's what I'll
Mm.
be doing. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Well,
I might spend the rest of the day trying to tame this bit of hair that's
I think
curling
it's
its way
kind
out
of
of my head.
cute. Yeah. I'm thinking it should be there. There's a message there. It's like, don't always go. Sometimes it's worth going against
Yeah,
the
I'm going this
tide.
way.
Yes,
There's nothing you can
precisely.
do about it.
No,
Yeah.
precisely, precisely. Well, you make a great day, my friend.
And you. Yeah, lovely to speak to you.
I'll say.
All right. See you soon.